Boa noite, boa noite, boa noite, Brasil sobrevivente da quarentena, e boa noite a você, a mim, a todos nós, pais. Nada melhor do que a paternidade, gente. Não existe coisa melhor do que ser pai. Não existe viagem, não existe álcool, mulher, viagem, doideira, show, nada, absolutamente nada é melhor do que ser pai. Por isso que, antes de começar, antes da boa noite, antes de falar do meu convidado, um brinde a todos nós, pais desse país, dessa selva chamada Brasil. Muito bom vir de presente hoje. Vamos lá, gente. Uma boa noite para todos. Eu aqui, Hugo Medeiros, em mais uma live aqui no Instagram. De vez em quando farei uma live ou outra aqui no Instagram. Mas, como vocês sabem, as lives principais agora estão quase sempre no YouTube, canal Coluna Blues Rock 2.0. E se vocês ainda não se inscreveram no cacete do canal Coluna Blues Rock 2.0, por favor, se inscrevam. Isso vai ajudar demais o canal. Por favor, divulguem também. Quero dar uma boa noite para minha querida amiga, se tornou uma grande amiga, minha irmãzinha rock and roll, e também a nova colaboradora do Coluna Blues Rock, Ellen Caroline, ou a.k.a. 9 Feet Underground, uma grande artista plástica. Abraço ao Jonas Russo 18, abraços ao mundo, ao Cezinha, Passos Cezinha, ao Mundo Harmônica e a todos que estão chegando ou que verão mais tarde pelo YouTube. Vamos lá, gente, só deixa eu fazer aqui aquelas apresentações aqui nos comentários. Eu não consigo escrever e falar ao mesmo tempo, senão eu vou me enrolar todo. Muito álcool e outras coisas ao longo dos anos. Só deixa eu chamar aqui os amiguinhos. Porque, como vocês sabem, quanto mais amiguinhos, melhor. Concordam? Foi. Acho que foi. Vamos lá, gente. Hoje teremos aqui um dos grandes guitarristas da atualidade. É um cara que eu vou falar aqui, né? Mas como eu vou falar inglês, eu vou fazer aqui uma apresentação. E eu acabei descobrindo, não esse guitarrista, mas a banda desse guitarrista por acidente no YouTube. E hoje em dia é uma das minhas bandas favoritas. E esse guitarrista, gente, minha filha passou aqui, é escroto. De tão bom. Estou falando de senhor Jimmy James. Jimmy James é um guitarrista de Seattle. Ele é guitarrista da Delvon Lamar Organ Trio. E para você que gosta de soul e gosta de funk music, cara, fique ligado nessa live, porque o cara toca, que é uma barbaridade, mas toca demais, toca muito, gente. Eu já vi, um pouquinho, uma meia hora mais cedo, ele deu um likezinho na foto, então acredito que ele não vá furar. Tive muitos furos ao longo dessa quarentena, mas como a gente não está mais em quarentena, pelo menos não daquela forma, eu acredito que nós não teremos mais um furo internacional. Vamos recordar que ontem tivemos uma live excelente, fantástica, fora de série, sobre o blues inglês. Falamos sobre Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Rory Gallagher, Mick Taylor, John Mayall, Alex Corner. E tivemos a presença ilustre de dois mestres do blues, o Maurício Saad e o Alamo Leal, mestre Alamo Leal, e também o Neto Rockefeller e o Daniel Imenes, dois grandes guitarristas do Brasil. O papo foi maravilhoso, foram quase 2 horas de altos papos, muitas histórias do mestre Alamo Leal. Recomendo a todos a verem esse vídeo, essa live já está lá no Coluna Blues Rock 2.0 no canal do YouTube. O senhor Jimmy James acabou de me mencionar aqui, provavelmente ele deve estar falando lá no canal Coluna Blues Rock. Acredito que ele deve estar entrando em alguns instantes, ou seja, ele está acordado, está no Instagram. Acredito eu que não vai ter furo hoje. Se você ainda não conhece a Delvon Lamar Organ Trio. Cara, escutem, porque é incrível. Eles têm um disco inteiro de estúdio no Spotify. Eles também têm um disco ao vivo no Spotify e tem alguns singles. Escutem tudo. Agora, se você não gosta de escutar, gosta mais de ver o show, eu recomendo demais. No YouTube também, Delvon Lamar, Organ Trio Live, KEXP. KEXP é uma rádio. Uma rádio não, se não me engano é um canal de YouTube, ou rádio é um canal de YouTube, que eles disponibilizam sempre no YouTube, e é simplesmente incrível. Lá vocês vão poder ver o melhor do Delvon Lamar, lá vocês vão poder ver, que é o organista, vão poder ver o Jimmy James tocando a sua guitarra mais funkeada, incendiária, e vocês vão poder ver o primeiro baterista da banda, que pra mim era anos-luz melhor do que esse que entrou, que era o David McGraw, não sei. Mas, claro que o baterista atual é muito bom, mas acredito que o primeiro, o original, era ainda melhor. Tô dando aquela enrolada, né? Novamente, um feliz Dia dos Pais para todos. Se você ainda não votou, tá rolando agora a votação, tanto nos stories como na postagem. A foto vai ser aquela capa clássica do King Crimson e a vaquinha do Autumn Heart Matter do Pink Floyd. Vote Pink Floyd ou King Crimson. Quem levar a melhor, a votação se encerra amanhã lá pelas 8 da manhã, ganhará um especial quarta-feira às 8 da noite no canal do YouTube Coluna Blues Rock 2.0. Senhor Mr. Jimmy James is in the house, so I'm gonna put him right now on our chat.
Can you hear me?
What's up, man? Yeah, perfect.
Hey, what's happening?
How are you, man?
What's happening? Shoot, just ran from this recording session, and then I was like, oh shoot, I better get here on time so I can make sure I'm on time with this.
That's perfect, man. You came. That's important.
Oh man, shoot, I just want to be on time.
Yeah, man, so nice to meet you and talk to you, because I think in Portuguese is a good expression. I know that in English it's not so good, but in Portuguese you're a monster, you know. You're an insane guitar player, man. You're insane. You have a funky Jimi Hendrix, Steve Cropper guitar playing. So I'm a huge fan, man. Really.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. Shoot, I'm still trying, still figuring it out. You know, stuff like that.
I,
But
I
yeah,
discovered the Alvin Lamar Organ Trio in that live record on YouTube, live at KEXP, right? So I saw, of course, Alvin Lamar is a kick-ass organ player. He's insane. He's excellent. And Dave McGraw, the former drummer, was kick-ass. But when I saw you, man, with that leaky, that Hendrix atmosphere, you know, I saw, whoa, man, he's insane. Really, man.
oh man, thanks, man. Shoot, Jimi Hendrix is from my hometown. He's actually from my neighborhood, actually.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. He's from Seattle, Washington. He's born and raised there, man. Like I'm born and raised here as well. But yeah, he's from this neck of the woods over here. So yeah.
Nice, man. So nice. So, yeah, so talking about Hendrix, I talk about Steve Cropper. I guess he's one of your major influence, because Steve Cropper and all these Stax stuff, and you are a great soul and funk guitar player. So how was your first contact with music? Not professionally, but I mean during your childhood, what did you listen to?
Well, I mean, I grew up around my sisters and my mother, my grandmother, and so It's like my oldest sister liked to to she liked to listen to like classical music as well as like a lot of pop stuff, like Michael Jackson and people like that. My grandmother listened to gospel. My mother listened to Motown stacks and country and western. And my other sister, she listened to a lot of like metal and rock and classic rock and stuff like that. So many different influences coming from around that. But I mostly dug into like I dug into everything that they had. But the first thing that really got me into music really was when I heard "My Girl" by the Temptations, which everybody knows is that one, and Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. I second that emotion that that and then there was that line that was the line that really got me into it. So those two songs really are the ones that really did it for me, like that Motown stuff. And I mean, but yeah, it was mostly like the Motown and the Stack stuff that really got me into it, more so. And the like rock and roll from Chuck Berry and Little Richard, people like that, and the blues, of course, B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, people like that. So that really is that's really what set it off for me, It's just because I liked Chuck Berry a lot, so I wanted to really get into the whole, I used to play a lot of this, you know what I mean? Like I was getting into a lot of that, so that was really all it was. But yeah, so I mean, the styles are all over the place, but mostly those things.
It's interesting because you just talked about Chuck Berry, and last night, we did here in Brazil live about English blues, and we were talking about Clapton, Mick Taylor, and all the English dinosaurs of guitar, and sometime and in a in a moment, someone talked about Chuck Berry and talked, no, Chuck Berry is blues. I talked, well, he could play it. He used to play some blues, but I think Chuck Berry is not strictly blues. I think he also has had a country guitar playing also. He had a lot of stuff, not only blues.
Well, he was more. I mean, he was more. Anybody listen to him? He's rock and roll all day long. You know what I mean? Like you listen to anything from Too Much Monkey Business, of course, Johnny Be Good. He did a song called Memphis, Tennessee. He did so many things. Run Run Rudolph, Nadine. He did a song called Maybelline. That was all rock and roll, But of course, he listened to country and listened to blues. I mean, the one blues that he played was the one blues that I'm familiar with that he played was In the Wee Wee Hours, was one of his blues numbers. But he was straight rock and roll because when you listen to him and he's doing like I said, Johnny Be Good, where he's like, he still got the blues progression, but it's it's a You know what I mean? Like that's basically. I mean, he's Chuck Berry's rock and roll all day long.
Yeah.
Blues. Blues because rock and roll is really the grand, as Muddy Waters put it. Rock and roll is the grandbaby of the blues. I mean, it's still a 12-bar performance, but instead of it going, like. It's just more, that's what it mostly is, and that's where rock and roll came from. It's like people like Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Little Richard, Amos Milburn, people like that, Chuck Berry, of course, Fats Domino, people like that. And that's where it really comes from. But Chuck Berry's more as a rock and roller, hands down. So yeah.
Big Joe Turner also.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Rollin' Pete was one of my favorite songs by by him. But yeah, man, lot of cats, man.
Yeah.
You know.
I love that Fats Domino swing and vocal. Ain't that a shame? Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
It's whoa, insane,
Yep.
insane.
New Orleans own,
Yeah,
man. Yeah,
yeah,
man. It's like, you know, Little Richard was the. I mean, when you speak of rock and roll, Little Richard was the last of those
yeah.
greats. You know, who passed unfortunately, but he was the last of that bunch that was still around. You know, that's sad. You know, because you know it's just like somebody's got to keep it up. But that's those guys were like those were the guys I listened to growing up, and stuff like that. And I still continue to listen to them because that's where it comes from me, But yeah, I can get to that all day.
Yeah. And how and when did you start to play the guitar?
I would say I started like right around. I tinkered around with it a little bit because my sister had a little acoustic guitar. Because I used to bang away on her drums and stuff. But I tinker around with it because she had a little beat up guitar, like little beat up acoustic that didn't have much strings on it. But I used to do that, but I didn't really get more into it until I was like, I would say 12, I think, and I still really got into it, and that's when I got my first acoustic guitar for like $20, and all I had was like all the strings broke, so all I could play was just. That's all I could play because there was nothing else. There was no other string to play but that. Because I was into Chuck Berry, so I was like, man, I want to be just like Chuck Berry, And so I would play that. But other than that, it was just that was the only thing, And then until I got some more strings that I could play like Mustang Sally like that. That's that part. But the other part, the part that mainly drives it is the stuff like that. But I was mainly into that and the blues more so, like B.B. King and Freddie King and Albert King and all those guys, man, and Bo Carter. Well, when it comes to Bobby Blue Bland, I would have to say his guitarist Pat O'Hare, who was the one who really got me into it. That farther on up the road and stuff like that. So I was so into that. I'm still into that stuff. Like I never got away from it, So yeah.
And that's interesting that you're talking about the B.B. King, Albert King, and Fred King, because mistakenly people think that blues is a square music, only dun dun dun. No, because between every note we have the swing, we have the groove.
Well, the thing about the blues is this. In order to understand the foundation of American music, you have to know the blues. Like, you have to understand the blues. And I can't stress that enough. And anybody who listens to jazz, if you would talk to Miles Davis, he'd say the same thing. John Coltrane would say the same thing. Like, Charlie Parker played bebop. Yeah. Bebop is just blues with chord extensions. Yeah. But blues, the thing it's like when you're building a house, you have to have the foundation and then build up. If you don't have a foundation, you're building on just sifting sand. And the thing to be understood about blues, it's not an easy thing to play. It's not just, just the 4-1-4-5. It's a feeling. It's a feeling that you can't get this on paper. There's nothing on paper that can ever do it. No theory, nothing of that. It's all feeling. It's like you can try to play some of B.B. King's off a piece of paper that somebody just transcribed, but that's not going to come across the same way as where it's coming from B.B. King's own fingers. You know what I mean? And everybody's going to play the blues different. You got a slow blues number. If you got a blues number saying, you might go, know what I mean? And stuff like that. I mean, it's a feeling, and it's just like that's where the blues comes from. The blues comes from anything that you're going through, you know. But it's a feeling, and that's something that can't be taught in school. That's not something that can be taught off a piece of paper. That's something that comes from experience and from within you, and only you would know what that is. Nobody else would know what that is, you know what I mean? But that's, you know, that's how I look at it. That's my philosophy on it, you know.
It's a good analogy about the building. I like that. I like a lot. It's
Right.
curious because one of the first Jimi Hendrix band was Jimmy James and the Flames. And your guitar play, it has a lot of Jimi Hendrix. Could you talk specifically about Jimi Hendrix?
Ooh, it's hard to put into words, but I will put it like this. Man, I got into him when I was about what? I was 8 years old, and my sister played Purple Haze. And Foxy Lady, when I heard Purple Haze for the very first time, it scared me. You know what I mean? And the thing is, with him being from Seattle and stuff like that, I remember I was so excited that I thought he was current. I thought he was heavy metal for what he was, you know, and I thought he was current. And so when I got older, I asked my sister, I said, oh, I want to go see him perform. And to only realize that I was born 11 years too late, you know, and he passed in 1970, and I was born in the 80s. So it's like I missed that train. But what I can describe about Jimi Hendrix is this. What he does with the guitar, he was the missing link, the void between the past and what the future would be. And he was so free with the guitar that he made it more than just a little side instrument. He made it an instrument that everybody wanted to have, you know. And he was so free with the guitar and fearless with it that he could go anywhere he wanted to go with it, you know what I mean? And he took it places that it never went. For example, when he played the Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock, and he did with that, he was able to get so many sounds. He got the sounds of warfare, the sounds of Learjets and bombs dropping and all that. And it's just undescribable. Like, and you can't even put it into words. But he was fearless enough to go so beyond what the guitar could do that it wasn't even thought of. Nobody even thought that the guitar could do that. And Jimi Hendrix showed that. He made feedback, which was considered a nuisance, musical, you know? He was, and here's another thing people might not know out there. Now, anybody who owns a Stratocasters came with 3-position switches. And Jimmy came along on the second album of X's Buddha's Love when he did Wait Until Tomorrow or Little Wayne. He discovered a thing where he put the guitar, the switch between the rhythm pickup and the middle pickup, which it wasn't made to do, which put the pickup out of phase and gave him that sound. That's the sound known that Stevie Ray Vaughan uses. But Jimi Hendrix made that discovery, and Leo Fender didn't even know that existed until Jimi Hendrix did that. So he took the guitar into places that it never would have went. And because of him, he was the biggest contributor, hands down, on his own to changing the sound of the guitar and made it into more of an instrument that everybody wanted to play. You know, but I just feel strongly about that.
Another guitar player with new sounds or undiscovery sounds was Tom Morello with that crazy sounds from Rage Against the Machine.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I heard the stuff. I heard the stuff he did later with Audio Slave.
Yeah.
And he, you know, he was able to like make record scratches and the whammy pedal and stuff like that, you know. But yeah, I really dig that stuff and what he was doing with that. So
yeah, he's not blues, but I like Tom Morello. He's a great guitar player. I like him. Many people mistakenly associate Seattle with grunge music. Particularly, I think it's adolescent music. I don't like grunge at all. Actually,
Okay.
Seattle has a strong funk scene. Could you talk about that funk scene?
Well, there's groups out in Seattle. There's a lot of funk groups in Seattle. There's a group I played with at a club called the Sea Monster Lounge called F2D, and we played a lot of like stuff by James Brown, Marvin Whitney. We would play stuff by Sly and the Family Stone. Um, Jesus Christ, there's a lot of stuff to think about. But we would do a lot of stuff. We would do our own, excuse me, but we would do a lot of that stuff. There's bands that came also out of Seattle. I mean, a ton. There's a group called The Dip. Of course, I play in the True Loves as well, and the Juan Lamar Trio. But there's a lot of groups out there. There's a label called We Coast Records, and stuff. There's a group called Marmalade. They play, when before COVID, they were playing at a club called the High Dive, and they did like improvised stuff, improvised funk, and there's a lot of groups out there, man. I mean, one of my guys, Thaddeus Turner, same thing, they do all that stuff, and that's what it really is, And I mean, Seattle is, a rock city. You find a lot of grunge, of course, because that was the second wave after, Jimi Hendrix, but Jimi Hendrix didn't get discovered. Of course, he discovered in London, of course. But grunge was a big thing in the 90s, you couldn't escape it. It was everywhere, with Nirvana and groups like the Melvins and stuff like that, and Pearl Jam and all that. So, yeah, you couldn't escape that. But the funk scene is there. It's just it's in small pockets. You just have to find it. But it's out there. It's really out there, it's mostly like you find groups who play at the like Sea Monster Lounge. That's where you find the majority of it on during the week when, again, before COVID, on the whole thing, that's where you found everybody at. And it was like, they had a 700 funk jam and all that stuff, So, yeah, it was a lot of stuff out there.
Does Seattle have musical DNA, his own musical identity?
Yeah, well, because you know what, you can say that because we're very, if you look at the Pacific Northwest, we're way out of the beaten path for everything, because we're so far up north. So it's hard for a lot of groups touring groups to travel, because it's kind of like, instead of making a straight shot across the country, like from New York all the way to the, West Coast, it's like you got to churn all the way off the beaten path and then come back down again. And so that's just why it's hard to really get those groups here. I mean, but it is a different thing, because we're kind of isolated. We're off to ourselves, kind of, in a way. We're often, way in the great north, so yeah, it's kind of different, because it has a little rock here and there. It has jazz here and there and stuff like that. It's a mix of different things. So yeah, that's how I put it.
Yeah. I'm a US music researcher, and I was reading about that during the Second World War II, there was a huge migration from Louisiana to Seattle. Maybe that funk scene has came from Louisiana. Maybe. Did you listen to the New Orleans music?
I've listened. If I say, I would say like I listen to some of the meters, but because I got family from like Texas and places like that, I heard more groups from there. Like more out through the South, not even just New Orleans, but just through the South. Like the really like gut bucket, blues and soul and that groove. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't just New Orleans that I heard, but it was a bit of that, but it was a bit of everything from like, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Texas, stuff like that. So you heard a lot of that. Like, like Texas being one of the hugest states, it's like one group I grew up listening to, Archie Bell and the Drills, which the backing band was TSU Tornadoes, and they did a song called "The Tighten Up." And everybody who knows that song it goes to that. You know what I mean? And there was that, and I heard, a lot of those grooves, and stuff like that. But, of course, I didn't really know those, I know later, but I didn't know then, that a lot of those groups were from the South and stuff like that until, I started reading like linear notes on the back of records. And that's how I picked up on a lot of those groups. But I wasn't know. I was just hearing music to be hearing music, But most of the songs I listened to came from the South anyway. So that's what I was big into.
So you listen to all the Deep South, not specifically Louisiana, right?
Not specifically Louisiana. It was just all over, all over the South. Yeah.
As I said, I love Devon Lamar Organ Trio. So a few years ago, I did an interview with Devon Lamar. He's a great guy and musician. I like a lot him. So because Devon Lamar Organ Trio, the band, brings a blend of soul, funk, and some blues spices. So how did the band was born?
Well, when they played, the band started off down at a club called the Royal Room. Delvon didn't really want to start his own band, so Amy, our manager, was the one who put things together. And they started out, and there was another guy I played guitar at first, and things didn't work out, and so Delvon called me up and was like, "Hey, man, you want to come on down here and play with me?" And I've seen Delvon on and off for many years, like many years, at different times. We bump into each other. I remember he tells the story of me coming in that club and sitting in on the thing, on a jam. And so that's what happened with that. But yeah, we bumped into each other on and off for years. And then we start going down to, start doing a weekly down at the Royal Room. And that's where everything started. That whole album, everything. We just jam everything out. He would have an idea, I would throw an idea, and stuff like that. And that's just how we did it then, and it was groovy, man, from that day forward.
Yeah. As I said, when I saw the band for the first time on the KEXP. On the YouTube, I was completely insane and crazy about that sound, but in a good part because about the David McGraw. He's an excellent drummer. Because he brought a lot of funk, and I like it with a jazz swing too. Why did he leave the band?
That's a long story. It's a bunch of things, I can't really explain here, but I know that I play with him in the True Loves, and I'll leave it at that because it's hard to explain. But other than that, I still play with him in the True Loves, and David, like when I play with him, man, I mean he's that guy, he is, because where he comes from, I mean he's the one who started the True Loves actually, and he's got a soul drumming style that you just don't hear. There's only a few cats who can really do that, He's one of them. I mean, he's like, I know him and Homer Steinweiss being from Sharon Jones and Dap Kings, I know they've talked together, and stuff like that. So, but it's a certain thing, like he listens to soul music, and I know his record collection because I know what he listens to, and that cat never, that's where he comes from. That's how me and him linked up in the True Loves when he called me and said, "Hey, you want to sit in and jam a bit?" And that was a drum sound that I looked for so many years, and he had exactly that, So yeah.
And could you talk about Devon Lamar Organ Trio new drummer Dan Wise?
Dan Weiss. Yes, Dan Weiss is the new guy, of course. He's from he is. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, he comes from Reno, Nevada, and he plays in a group called the Sex Tones, and he's into that style of music. He's into he's got the soul and the funk sound, too. So he's very groovy, man. He's got a great thing going, and he's really good fit. So he he does the thing, man. And I mean, it's really easy to play with him. He's a great guy. So yeah, I love him.
Yeah. I heard the new, not new album, but I heard the album Close, but no cigar. It's a great album. Could you talk about it?
Yeah, when a lot of that started when we were at the Raw Room and we were working stuff out. And I remember Delvon started off with the bass line to Coso Cigar. He said, "Man, I got this idea, I got this tune," and it's just like, he had that bass line going. So I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "What's that?" And he's like, "Oh man, this little thing I'm working out." I said, "Man, play that again, man. I dig that." And he's like, "What you got?" I said, "Man, this is what I heard." And so as soon as I heard it, I was like, "Oh." And the first thing that came to mind was this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was it. And we added little things here and there that you know what I mean? And we just worked it out from there. And that's how a lot of those songs came about, Delvon wrote Concussion,
Yeah.
And then David came in and was like, Walk On By. And of course, that that came along, and I mean a lot of other things. Of course, we did. Raymond Brings the Greens was one where Delvon asked for a plate of greens, and then we just. You know what I mean? And yeah, there was a lot of stuff on there, man. It was just a lot of that stuff was worked out, like when we were just doing a weekly and we were like, "Oh man, I got this idea. Here, let's play that. Man, I got this idea. Let's play that." And you come in and you're like, "Oh man, I dig that. What you playing then?" "Okay, I dig that. Okay, I got this one. Now play over it." "Okay, somebody will kick it off, David will kick it off, or Alona, somebody will kick it off, And so that's how it worked out.
Yeah.
It was real fun. I mean, that's how it works with us. It's just like, somebody's like, "I'll sit outside and you got a groove going." You're like, "Man, I got this groove going in my head. Play this." All right. Or somebody playing something. You're like, "What's that?" "Okay, I'm going to play that," And that's just how it works today. "Okay, on to the next tune." "Okay, I got this other groove. Check this out." He worked that out. Record that. Next one, and that's just how it works,
Yeah. And what music's about? Have fun, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's all about,
Is it too different to play without a regular bass player?
Not actually. I'll tell you the reason why. I don't miss it. I don't even notice the difference. You know what I mean? Because Delvon does such a great job. Like his left hand and his bass foot are something else. I've said that for years, even before we played with him. I would tell you like this. What I would say, the way he plays bass on the organ is the way James Jamerson plays bass on Motown. But except he does it through a Hammond B3. So you don't even really miss it. Like I don't miss it at all. Like, I mean, I love bass. I love bass because I play it myself. But he covers that ground so greatly that you don't even know that the bass is missing at all. You don't notice it. Like I know some people are like, "Hey, would you ever get a bass line?" Because it's so easy. I mean, because we we double up on everything. You know, like he'll play two of things, I'll play two of things. You know what I mean? And like the way he plays bass, he doesn't play bass like, oh, it's a Hammond bass, pump, pump, pump. He plays like a actual bassist. You know what I mean? Which is something I don't hear, because I was never, to be quite honest, when I heard Oregon, I was like, you know, the usual bass. You're like, you need a bass player, but the way he plays makes you not even think, oh, a bass player's missing, because he's already got it together. But he also plays bass too himself. We have a lot in common. We both play drums. We both start drummer. He plays bass a little bit. I play bass. He started playing horn, you know, and then he went to Oregon. But I start drums. I play a little bit of bass, but I play guitar. Yeah. You know, so it's very. I don't notice the difference at all. It's not that hard at all.
I just remember right now we were talking about Jimi Hendrix, and once I did an interview with drummer Billy Cobham from Mahavishnu Orchestra, and he's a great drummer. He's insane. And he told me on the interview that Jimi Hendrix was the biggest groovy man ever, and he told me no one could groovy on the bass guitar like Jimi Hendrix. No one. I just remember that. So sorry. I have to talk.
Yeah, Hendrix played bass. Hendrix played bass on All Along the Watchtower. If a lot of people don't know that, that wasn't No Redding. That was Jimi Hendrix on bass. Jimi Hendrix also played bass on Have You Ever Been to Electric Ladyland? Not the album, but the title track. And he played on that. But to play bass, man, bass is something else, but that's a whole nother story, right?
You know, okay, Ex Builder's Love it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Electric Ladyland is musical LSD. But my favorite Jimi Hendrix is the Band of Gypsy, because it's funk music. I like Band of Gypsy. It's funk with rock and roll and attitude, you know?
Yeah, well, because he had Buddy Miles and Billy Cox.
Yeah.
Because when you listen to it, you hear that. You know, my favorite song, first song that introduced me to that album was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I heard that was the thing that really brought me into that album. But I noticed that it got tighter when Billy Cox got into the mix. You know, Billy Cox was like No Redding was a guitar player, but he was playing bass. But Billy Cox was a bassist. You know what I mean? And Hendrix's songs start to kick off more because, you take a song like Machine Gun, and no matter what Jimmy's doing or whatever the drummers are doing, he's just. The whole way. And Jimmy could be going into a different time, the drums are going to a different time, but he's still doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's doing that whole thing, you know, and that's what it was. But I heard a great cover of a Band of Gypsies tune by the JBs. Hard to believe it, but James Brown's band with Bootsy Collins and Catfish Collins, they covered Power of Soul, and it's on an instrumental album. And of course, they play it different, like they play that. Was it? But they play it different. They play it. I can't play it, but yeah, it's kind of hard. Yeah, I haven't played it so long. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I haven't played it in so long, but they play a version of it that is really great. Like that is their version kicks like just really kicks, like it's great. If I had to say if I were to throw up, and I know this is probably beaten to the question beforehand, if I had to say one of my favorite Jimi Hendrix tunes that I love to play, and nobody really plays this song really, is Isabella, the version he plays at Woodstock. Not many people play that one. But that's just
Yeah. When that Who Knows Jimi Hendrix from Band of View. So Billy Cox in the same time with Betty Miles is at the same time it's beautiful as Devon Lamar told me on our interview, is in the pocket, it's in the pocket.
yeah, yeah. It's got to be in the pocket. Like that's where like James Brown always emphasized the one. You know what I mean? It's like the one. Of course, Boosie even talks about it. He's just like one, two, one. That's one. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want with that, but as long as that one is one, as long as that pocket's there, that's the main thing. Once the pocket's there, you got it. It's right on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's for James Brown and stuff, because I listen to a lot of James Brown, of course, all day.
Of course.
But yeah, man, that's and it could get into James Brown all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. During this quarantine, you, the Devon Lamar Oregon Trio, released 2 new singles, For Sure and Inner City Blues. Could you talk about these 2 new singles?
Yeah, that one. Don't get mad at me for saying that, but that was a hard song to play at first when we did For Sure. Just because the intro was it was hard, but we got through it. But Delvon wrote that one, and so that was one of the first singles to be released. And then Inner City Blues, we had been playing Inner City Blues for quite a while before we recorded that. So, because he had it where he's like, hey man, you know that one? I'll say, yeah. And so he's like, and I know the one is like, I was like, boom, boom, da da da, boom, boom, da da da, But the way we did it was just like, and took it up a notch, and then we played it that way, and then it was released as a single,
Yeah.
So it was. I mean, yeah, we've been playing that tune for a while. So going back and recording, it was like, oh, yeah, we can get into that, yeah, So yeah, that's a fun tune to play always, and For Sure is a fun tune as well, And there's a lot more songs where that came from. Promise you on that.
Jimmy, I have an audience question here. Submarino75, okay. He's asking, Jimmy, have you ever played with Sharon Jones, regardless from Argentina?
I sat in one day. She invited me. It was one of the last shows she did in Seattle, and I did sit in with her. Actually, anybody who goes to my Instagram page, I have it in my IGTV, where she invites me on stage, and then she tells Gabe, hey, Jimmy James plays guitar.
I saw that.
And then I sat in with
I saw that, yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. That was fun. I still have the hugest crush on Miss Sarah Jones forever.
Unfortunately, she went away too young because she was a diva.
Yeah, well, she had, and then she had to deal with, that cancer and stuff like that. But yeah, man, she was something. She was she was my favorite live act by far.
Yeah.
So I miss her still today.
I always thought that she was the nearest to Aretha Franklin.
She was really compared. A lot of people compared her as the female James Brown.
Could be.
They both came from Augusta, Georgia, and she worked. I would say, she was the hardest working woman in show business, if I would say so myself. But she was something else, man. I mean, I saw pretty much every show that ever came through Seattle when she was in town, and her and the Dak Kings are the business. They are the real deal. Like this, like if you missed them, I feel sorry for you because they were the real deal. Like they just excited me. Like I can't even put in the words. It leaves me speechless. Like I can't even put in the words. It's just you have to see the video clips to see what they were about. But that's all I can think. That's all I can say really.
Yeah, Jimmy, thank you so much for this amazing interview. Today here in Brazil, we are on Father's Day. So, could you please play a little bit to all Brazilian fathers?
Okay. What did I come up with? I gotta figure out. Should I make up something or should I cover?
That's your choice. So before you play, could you please increase a little bit because the guitar sound is too low.
Oh, okay.
No, that's okay because you were talking.
Is that loud enough?
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, because I can turn it up just to the ear. There. Oh.
Play whatever you want, man.
Oh, let me see. What I play? I can make up something. Let's see. I don't know. I think it's something.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I could get into a groovy thing real quick too, if you want.
To conclude this beautiful interview and this beautiful moment, could you just talk a little bit of some Hendrix bass too?
Like some Hendrix, you said Hendrix
bass? I mean the rhythm guitar, some funk Hendrix. Just the rhythm guitar player.
You know what? I can play it more than I can talk.
Sure, man.
Probably. So, I'll play a song. I'll play that song I mentioned by Jimi Hendrix that I like so much. Like this.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. Jimmy, thank you so much for your attention, for your kindness. I have to say, man, you're in my top 5 guitar players today. That's the truth, man. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Oh, thank you, man. Oh, thank you.
No
Thank
one
you,
can
man. And
swing and groovy like you do, man. Really.
oh, thank you, man. Shoot, we're still working on it. But yeah, man. I noticed there's a lot of people asking questions, and if I'm not able to answer questions, um, anybody is free to DM me on my Instagram inbox, and I'll answer questions if we're not able to answer the questions for you.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who's listening, if you have any questions, just DM me in my box, and I'll get back to you and answer any questions if we don't have enough time to
Yeah.
answer.
Jimmy, thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Oh man, thank you so very much, man. Shoot, man, we should do this again sometime.
Yeah, it will be my pleasure, man. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Take care, man.
All right, thank you. All right, you too.
Thank you, man. See you.
All right, talk to you then. Bye.